Ba-da-ba-bum. I got him, you got him, we got him. Comic Issues, yeah!
Hello, everyone. Hope you had a good Easter. Welcome to Comic Issues, episode 24. Man, I'm glad you can only see about chest up because I got a little overzealous at the Curly's barbecue earlier. It's all over me old stomach. I'd like to start out the episode showing off this cool comic that I found. It's pretty right up my alley. I paid $5 for it, and this is the Uncanny X-Men 245. That looks like a regular old X-Men comic, but what you don't see is that this has a parody. This is a parody of DC's Invasion series. Also, it has a cameo appearance of Chewbacca, Yoda, Jabba the Hutt, Boba Fett, Alien Xenomorph, E.T., and Alf. All those people. And Jean Grey, full frontal nudity. It's pretty far back, but it's there. So, yeah, this comic's pretty much dings all my bells. Super excited to get it. Can't believe all this stuff was in one comic. If you'd like to see more on that comic, maybe we do a review or something, just let me know. But we're going to go ahead and spin the wheel. We only have, well, we had 4 comments, and 2 of them were the same. And 2 of them were C4, and one was R2, and the other was E6. So let's spin this wheel, kind of have a feeling of what it's going to be. But who knows? I think one time Phil had two entries on there, and he didn't win. So let's see. Let's spin it. All right, round and round and round and round and round and round and round. Yep. No surprise here, guys. C4 wins it. But they're all winners. They're all winners. Hope the comic's good. Let's get it pulled. Be right back with you. Got it. Here it is. As usual. Feels awful heavy. I don't know why it feels so heavy. I hope it's not a long one. Let's see what we got here. Feels fat too. Oof. All right. Ooh. Yeah, so this is the second coming. The second coming. And I think this is the story of Jesus. Exactly like it is in the Bible. Exactly. It's by Comics Ahoy. We're going to give it a try. And I think this comic, when it was previewed to come out, I think it was like a Christmas gift. You couldn't see what the cover or even what the comic was going to be, I think. It might not be this one. I think that was a Mark Millar joint or something like that. But, yeah, this looks like a good one. Let's get it read, and we'll be back with the review. All right, guys, I got 2 things to say before I start this review. The first thing to say is, I don't know if you've been watching my channel, I've been talking about this channel having a lot of synchronicity. And when I first pulled this comic, I didn't think about it, but now that I've read through it, we just had Easter on Sunday, and now the comic that comes right after Easter, total on the viewer, random pick on the wheel, random pick out of all the 6,000 something comics that I have. It's a comic about the second coming of Christ. So that's take it for what it is. Number 2, and this is the more important one, I think. If you're easily offended and very religious and can't take other people's thoughts and things of this nature, you might not want to watch this episode because this comic is I'll just say this was originally supposed to be a DC release, and it's released by Ahoy for a reason, and that's because DC dropped it because of all the backlash that the writer and artist were getting, saying that they were throwing blasphemy. At the end, I'll share with you what that writer had to say about in response to this, which makes sense to me. So remember to subscribe, go ahead and throw your comment down at the bottom with next week's pick, and so we can get that taken care of. And let's get into the review. So we start, and we have roughly 2,000 years ago. In the beginning, God was lonely. So this is going to be the creation story, really, right? So we have God here with a scroll sitting on a beanbag chair, and he decides to create a couple humans to keep him busy and keep him entertained. So he brings him to the garden, and he tells him, you can do whatever you want, just like the real story, the story in the Bible. You can do whatever you want, but just don't eat the fruit from these two trees. So I chose not to blur the fruit from the trees. I hope it doesn't get me in trouble. But you guys just had to see the fruit. I'm not going to say what it is. I'll just let you interpret it. But look closely at the fruit, and we'll move on. So of course, they start eating the fruit. Eve's got the pickle, and Adam. This picture is just so funny for the next piece. So it's God catches him doing it, and Eve's like, how do we know until how could we have known until after eating it? God's like, damn it, Eve, don't lawyer ball me. And in the background, Adam's just pulling on his pickle, just messing with it. It's just so incredibly funny. It's so well done. So you got God throws him out of heaven, and he's like, and your other punishment is to you're gonna have to be parents, right? So that's your other punishment, and that was a mistake on God's part, because now they just start creating babies everywhere. And if you guys are familiar with the Bible, people lived a lot longer back then, so they were alive for a long time to be able to create babies and create the whole human race. And then the human race, just as they got so big, they just start turning on each other, because that's what happens. So God enforces law. So he gives the 10 Commandments, and here we see Moses with the 10 Commandments just looking like a badass. And the only thing that the law does is give the people a reason not to feel bad about what they're doing. So they're about to stone this adulteress, right? So it kind of backfired on God. There's got to be another way to help them. So Jesus is God's son, and he's on the beanbag chair, and he just wants to find a better way to let them escape their punishment and get back to Eden. So he's got the scroll out, and he's trying to figure things, and he's like, Dad, you're back. And God pops up out of the portal from Earth, and he's like, yeah, I'm done with them. I'm finished with them. They're all a bunch of jerks. Here you see God looking down on the shepherd, just calling him a jerk. And Jesus is like, so you're just going to leave him down here? And and God's like, well, I tried drowning him. So that's so. So Jesus is like, can I take a crack at it? And God's like, yeah, sure. You want to follow in your dad's footsteps? Let's do it. So here we see Jesus going down through the portal, and God's like, good for you, boy. Show them who they're messing with. That's right, bitches. Son of God coming through. It's just so crazy. So then we have 2,000 years ago in Judea, the archangel appears with the horn and tells Mary that she's going to be giving birth to God's son. She's okay with it. And then 10 years later, we see Jesus. Shimon is here with, I think it's how you say it, Shimon, something like that. He comes to visit Jesus and asks him to go watch the fights. And Jesus is like, I'd like to, but I can't. I got to stay here and help my dad. So they're carpenters. And Shimon's like, well, okay, well, can I stay and help too? And so, like, yeah, sure. So he turns out to be a very good helper, and he's eating supper with them, and Shimon's just like, I'm so happy to be here with a family that loves me and stuff. And Jesus' parents are like, why? Don't your family miss you? And Shimon's like, no, my mom is usually having company over, and she tells me to go and play a lot. So I expect that Shimon's parents were like, his mom was a whore or something like that. If you know anything about like the Bible, I'm not very versed in it. So if Shimon's mom, if that is somebody like that, let me know. So anyways, they start growing up, and Shimon becomes a way better carpenter than Jesus. And Jesus comes to him, and he's like, Dad, Mom and Dad are dead. I'm 30. I gotta go do what I set out to do when I first came here. And Shimon's like, so he leaves the carpentry business to Shimon. And Shimon's like, why did you wait 30 years? And Jesus tells him, I had to wait until I knew what it felt like to be loved and be part of a family, so that I could, spread that love across the world. So we go up to heaven, or wherever, God's at here in his abode, and he's looking down on Jesus, and he's checking out his son. He's like, give him hell, son. It's just so funny how they write God in this. Just as a regular person, loving his, like as a football dad or something like that. So he notices, like, he's looking in on him, and he's three years later, and he's like, oh no, and he sees what's happening. They're crucifying and Jesus pretty much. So he pops back up through the portal, and God's like, you only lasted 33 years? Come on, man. I was down there for millennia. And Jesus is like, don't give me a hard time, blah, blah, blah. So he gets ready to jump back down the portal. And God's like, where do you think you're going? And Jesus is like, I got to get back. They still need me. I told them I'd be right back. And God's like, no, you're not going back until you learn how to be a real God. So that's why the second coming hasn't happened yet, I guess. So we're back to present day, and we see a reporter here reporting on these machines that are just destroying the city. There's 2 peace doves here. I don't know what the semblance is there, but I'm sure there is some. And out of nowhere, in flies Sunstar. And this is my panel pick because it's very subtle, but you can see it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Sunstar. So it's pretty cool, subtle little hint at Superman there. So he starts just destroying all these robots, and he gets them beat up. And then there's this guy here. He's like, yeah, Sunstar. But what's funny about this is his shirt. It says LensCrafter, and it's got the devil on it. So somebody really doesn't like LensCrafters. And while Sunstar's just beating the crap out of these robots, God's up there eating some chicken wings, and watching the show, and he's like, "What the?" And he's like, "Hey, Jesus, get over here, man! Get over here! Holy mole on a pole! could that guy be any more awesome? If you were like him, your problems would be over. Their son starts putting on a show. Jesus is watching it. God's loving it. So they had to plan. We don't know what the plan is yet, but you could probably think of it, because the book's called Second Coming. So we are now Sunstar and his wife Sheila. They can't have kids, right? Because he's an alien. So they're trying to adopt, and this lady's going crazy. And Sunstar's not there, right? His name is Ken, by the way, not Kent. It's Ken. And he doesn't show up, so she has to leave. Like the adoption lady has to leave. So Sheila's sitting on the couch just watching some TV, and here's a newscast that comes up. The plane was reported missing 2 hours ago. And Ken's at the window with the curtains blowing in, just like on Lois and Clark Kent, that old show, how he would always pop in. Anyways, that's what's happening here. And Sheila's like, she's all kind of mad at him, like, "Why? Where you been, Ken?" And Ken's like, there. I've been looking everywhere. They're dead, Sheila. Dead because I couldn't find them. So then she tries to, help him out, like, you're only one man, and stuff like that. And we go from that area, and we're back in heaven, and there's a loudspeaker coming up that's like, "God, you're wanted at the opening gates," and this is so funny. And the guy's like, "What? That's the third time today. I haven't been to Earth in 2,000 years, and these people are still a pain in the ass." And then immediately later, Jesus is like, "Well, you did create them in your own image." So God's just like, yeah. That is so funny. So, the show's over with. God's finishing up, and there's a problem. The guy, they come over, and they're like, "This is Bill Morgan. Bill Morgan said he can't find his house," and Jesus is like, "Oh, you're Bill Morgan. You're an accountant. You're married with 2 children. Not a regular churchgoer. A fan of mean pranks. Just died in Flight 240 plane crash. That sound right?" And Bill's like, "Yeah." And God's like, "Oh, geez. You're not even supposed to be here. You're supposed to be burning in an eternal lake of fire." And Bill's like, no, not for eternity, not for eternity. And God's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." And Bill's just breaking down, and God's like, "Nah, I'm just busting your meat. There's no such thing as the lake of fire." He's like, "Who created a lake of fire? Was that you, Linda? Were you creating a lake of fire?" And Bill's just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that." And God's like, "But you see, it's not much fun to be a victim of mean pranks, is it?" And Bill's like, no, it's not. So God tells him to get out of here, you little scamp. And Jesus is like, "That was very mean to do." And God's like, "You need to toughen up." And Jesus is like, "Well, did you just create these people for the fun of your own amusement?" And God just brushes them off. And we go back, and Ken is still crying about, he's super depressed, and he's like, I got the powers of a god, and I can't even keep a simple plane from crashing. I can't even be a father to a child, blah, 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 blah. And Sheila comforts him, and, they start, feeling better, and Ken's like, "Let's go to bed." So they're getting it on, and boom, here comes God's huge face. He's like, "Do not be afraid." It interrupts them, and then 5 minutes later they're at the kitchen table, and God's telling them the plan that he has. And they're talking, he's like, "It kills me to say it, but if I could go back in time," so God's saying this, "But it kills me to say, if I can go back in time, I'm not even sure I'd have kids. On the other hand, without them, what's the point of all this, And I like this panel because I think they made him look like Kurt Russell here. looks a lot like Kurt Russell, the Kurt Russell from that new Santa Claus movie on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but that's a great one. And the second one was good too. So, so God's like, what do you say? Will you help me out? Take Jesus under your wing, show him how a real hero handles his chili. And he's like, I don't know. I guess so. So he does it, and the next day, he's got Jesus out there, and he's going to start showing him the superhero ropes. And he said there's a warehouse full of illegal merchandise, and Jesus is like, maybe I should just go in and talk to him. He's like, look, man, Earth's changed. Just stay out here. We'll get through it. Just follow my lead. So he goes in, and you see here, these people are the illegal contraband that they're talking about happens to be Monster Ball cards. I think that's supposed to be Pokemon cards. Sunstar just starts destroying people, throwing them out the window. Here you see people smashing out the window right in front of Jesus. He's just watching. He's got Sunstar's shoe in his hand. Sunstar threw a shoe at somebody, I guess. Sunstar's picking up the main guy. He's like, "You tell me who you work for," and the guy pops some pills that just instantly kill him, like cyanide pills or something like that, which is way overboard for selling counterfeit monkey ball cards or whatever they're called. So he's like, "That's okay. I still got these people outside. Let me go out and see what they say." So he walks outside, and he there's nobody out there. Where'd everybody go? And Jesus is like, I healed him. He's like, "Why'd you heal him?" He's like, "Because they were in pain." So, they're like, he's like, you just can't heal people. He's like, "Why not?" And they're just walking around, and, they're talking, and Jesus points up on top of a church, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" And it's a cross, and it's, and Sunstar's like, "That's a symbol for your followers everywhere." And Jesus is like, "Is that what they got out of this story? That, about me getting nailed to a cross? That's what's important?" And Sunstar's like, "Yeah, that's it. Isn't that what is important?" And Jesus starts telling the story, like, "No, those people were being nailed on crosses like left and right. That's not half of the importance." Shimon, and he starts telling the story about Shimon, and Shimon was the carpenter, right? So he was the one making all the crosses that were hanging all these people, or crucifying all these people. So everybody started, saying that he was a Roman collaborator, and shunning him and not talking to him and calling him a traitor. And eventually they'd spit on him and stuff, and he didn't really care about all that stuff. What really started hurting Shimon was that the loneliness of people not talking to him and not being accepted anywhere. Until one day he's making a cross, and he's bringing it out to the street, and here he sees Jesus walk by with his crown of thorns and all beat up, and he's like, "Jesus." And they meet face to face, and he's like, "You think the most important thing I did that day was being nailed to some wood? You think punishment is what brings salvation to the human race? It's not. It's saved by being brave enough to be intimidated, by being honest enough to be bribed, and when we fail, it is saved one act of forgiveness at a time." That's the last panel. The big story that this author thinks is that forgiveness is the way to salvation. So what happened here is that this artist came to DC with this story about Jesus being roommates with a superhero. DC was like, no way. There was a bunch of news stories, they're like, they dropped him like a bad habit. He got picked up by Ahoy Comics, which is awesome. So he says, they called me a blasphemer, and he says, "I guess I am a blasphemer, because blasphemy is just not going with the flow and speaking your own mind, right, about what you think." So here's what he says. He says, "So for better or for worse, this is my blasphemy. My stab at what I think Christ came to earth to accomplish, and how he'd feel about returning to find that mega church tycoons, prosperity doctrine charlatans, and media anger merchants had made themselves the executioners of his state. By no means am I suggesting mine is the only possible interpretation or even the best, just that when I consider what is important and unique about the life and words of Christ, the things that come to mind are his empathy and forgiveness, his refusal to play any of the reindeer games of the rich and powerful. So basically, this is freedom of speech. He's saying this may be this, the story that he thinks happened when Christ came to earth and when Christ comes back to earth. So I'm not going to get into it. That's just what this is the author. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I really liked it. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry. I got to do whatever gets pulled. I hope I did it good enough to where it was enjoyable for everyone. So like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time, guys. Be good to yourselves.